I think a big part of being an architect is having your fingerprint. When there are two of you, what are the difficulties you have in creating your brand, your aesthetic that you've become so well known for?
The amazing thing about John and I is that there is a very common mission and very similar goals. And we really complement each other. So we've had our own business for 27 years, and it's absolutely fabulous. And there's 4 times a year we want to kill each other.
Now, I heard recently someone say that designing or building in New York City is kind of like you're put in a box by zoning. Is it more difficult to work in that kind of environment?
Well, I think the first thing is I think in New York we're very lucky that there's zoning, because it really helps preserve the context of the city, which is really, really important to us. And I think once you have the envelope of the building of what you can build, there is enormous creativity in how you mold a building and how you shape it.
Right now we're doing this tower that the model is for 242 West 53rd Street. That is very much a tower. It's in Midtown Manhattan, so it has the extra restrictions of the Midtown zoning in terms of the envelope, but we're able to manipulate it to create a building that I think is going to be very, very exciting and something different, on the skyline.
In tall buildings, I think the challenge is to engage the skyline, and instead of creating single monuments that you might see in Dubai or some of the Middle Eastern cities, what we try to do is have a dialogue between our buildings and buildings next to it. So like One Madison, which was, is a 60-story tower, it sits next to a landmark, which is the MetLife building, and we designed that building and have these white pods that create a profile that face the MetLife building, so that it creates a dialogue between the 19th century and the 21st century.
So that's a challenge with new construction, and I know your firm has done almost as many, if not more, conversion projects.
Right.
So what are the challenges with those if you're dealing with an existing box?
Well, I think the excitement of working with historic buildings is really understanding the essence of what the design of the original architect was, and having that respect for the original architect. And I think that the exciting part of it is developing something that is modern and new, yet is very sympathetic and supportive of the original architecture. Like on a project like Walker Tower, which we worked on together, it was really posthumously working with a great architect from the past and really working together to create something that was even better than the original.
The building had such a distinct style. It was an Art Deco building, built, I think it was 1928. Not every building is perfect and ideal for every condition, so that was a case where, as you know, the window sills were 42 inches above the floor, and we looked at it and said, well, that's got to change. How do we do it? And it was done very sensitively and in a way that preserved a lot of what was there. I think people look at it now and think it's exactly the way it used to be, but it isn't.
And I think one of the really extraordinary things about that project, as we look back on it, is that it was that perfect storm. We had 2 developers who really wanted to do something special. We had your vision of knowing that we could create something truly extraordinary, and all of you having the faith in us that we could come up with something that no one else had seen before. And so it was really an extraordinary experience, I think, for all of us.
The part of the impact of restoration of old buildings has had an impact on new buildings, because there's a craftsmanship that had to be reintroduced into the building industry by buildings like Walker Tower or
141
Fifth Avenue, or the U. O'Neill building, where we recreated these turrets that had been taken off the building in 1920.
And so how has material changed the way you think about architecture?
Some of the new materials have enabled us and other architects to deal with plasticity instead of dealing with boxes. You know, being able to mold things out of man-made materials with ease and that are cost effective. I think it's really advanced our ability to really be able to think in more organic forms than we were able to do 20 years ago. In our buildings, it's very important on how something feels and the emotion it gives you. And we spend a lot of time on personally selecting every stone and designing all of the hardware. And I think as modern as we get, you know, as a world, people still love that tactile quality, that sense of craft. And so what we try to do is integrate modernism with craft, you know, to get that warm sense of home while also doing something that's very modern and forward.